This is AV SuperFriends Perspectives, a collection of interviews, discussions, and presentations from conferences, trade shows, and events that just don't fit either of the other two shows. Some are long, some are short, but they'll all have valuable insights, useful information, or just good conversation with thought leaders and subject matter experts. And now, the AV SuperFriends. All right, we are live from InfoComm 2024, and we have bootstrapped a bunch of recording stuff together because despite the fact that we traveled with umpteen thousands of dollars worth of stuff, well, a couple $100 worth of stuff.
Right.
It's not the greatest system in the world. So we're bootstrapping on a smaller recorder, but I'm joined by Justin and Larry, and we are, this is pre-show floor. We still have, 30 minutes before the show floor opens.
Yep.
So we are going to punt, and we will be back tomorrow with more stuff. But for now, we'll make this work.
And hopefully on the show floor tomorrow. Today we were locked out by
various policy and procedures.
Well, they're being very, very, very secure about today. I suspect because the show floor is not yet open. So I can get in, but these guys couldn't. So
even all the tricks of carrying boxes in didn't work.
We're not exhibitors at this point.
We'll give it a day and figure it out. So anyway, we're going to do a short recording here, try to get this out. This is more of a workflow test. So if you're hearing this, that was successful. If you don't hear this, you're not hearing it. So, all right. So what are you guys looking for on the show floor? There's a lot of activity, a lot of discussion. I think one of the questions is what is going to be the big theme, and we know, of course, that's going to be AI and 21x9, neither of which we really care about, but
maybe more so AI than 21x9.
What's
hopefully,
something with practical value we're looking for?
I'm curious about the ecosystem aspect of it all. Like, are we looking at... We were having conversations last night at dinner, and it sounded like more and more people are looking at that cloud-based entire enterprise ecosystem, which I love the sound of, but I also know there's no way I can make that work.
Right.
And so I'm curious, like, I fall in that weird middle ground of I have the technical chops to do stuff, I just don't have the ability. And is technology going to move in such a direction that I won't be able to implement some of the changes I see?
How do you mean?
Well, like if everything has to be connected to the cloud and everything has to be managed, like
so everything's on your enterprise at that point.
I love that idea, but I think that's not realistic for at least some of the universities and higher ed places out there.
I think the manufacturers are getting a little ahead of themselves, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and so I'm just prepared to see a lot of the solution I really like out there not actually be feasible.
Not something you can actually use, Yeah, I heard last night there was some discussion about central monitoring, and they're talking about how it's all cloud-based. I'm like, I'm not putting my stuff in the cloud.
Yeah.
That'd be great, but how? Like, tell me how you're going to do that with existing enterprise network infrastructure and where security is going.
The solution they always propose is we'll put a little box on your network, and that'll have two NICs, and I'm like, no, that's not going to pass muster. So
that's going to be weird.
The thing I keep pointing out is like that is in essence putting a managed switch on my network, and my security team is going to shut that down immediately.
Yeah. Well, and even if you're working with them, they won't want that there as a vector, as a potential security vector.
Yeah.
And then even if you do get it approved and it's working and it's there for a couple of months, there's some sort of security update, some filter change, some update to the firewall, and all of a sudden it's down. And then you're finding 3 or 4 times a year, you're trying to figure out why you can't monitor your stuff anymore. So.
Be careful when manufacturers are saying this is going to make your life easier. Don't necessarily buy into that right away. Dig into it and see what that means for your infrastructure and your support stack.
Well, and I've seen security vulnerabilities shut down devices on the network, and I'm worried that if I go that route, if somehow everything gets approved and I get this stuff on my enterprise network, well, there's a security flaw that is discovered, and security just shuts those ports off immediately. It's not that I lose monitoring. Like, do they need to communicate?
Well, there's that too.
Like, do I have half my campus down?
That's a good point. My assumption is we're talking only about monitoring.
Yeah.
But you are right. There are cloud-connected things that require cloud access for operation.
What are we talking about here? Content or just monitoring, right? And that's the scary thing is I heard when we were talking with some manufacturers before the show, I'm hearing content. I could be wrong, but people, the way they're talking...
That's the direction we're going.
I'm like, well, that's fine, but manufacturers are going to have to rework how they build their product in order for us to be able to update security patches on them quickly, like Windows.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do that?
Well, they'll want to tie it into it. They'll offer that solution too. Tie it into their like maintenance cloud service. So when there's patches, they'll help you do it. Like, I don't want you messing with my stuff.
But how much is that going to cost?
Well, and there's the other thing is every one of these I've seen so far has been a license per device per year.
Or per device, per day, per month, per year.
No, it's per year. And the challenge with that is, from a higher ed perspective, we're not budgeted that way. Yes, I may be able to absorb that from like the central IT perspective. I haven't budgeted for it, but I could probably absorb that. It's going to the departments who are going to give you one-time funds, and then you're going to come back to them in 6 or 8 or 7 years to do the next round. Well, in the meantime, you can't go back to them after 2 years and say you have to pay up another $1,000 for your monitoring,
right?
No.
Unless you front load all of that and then basically figure out a budgetary mechanism within your own institution to charge them ahead of time or charge them for it or whatever.
Well, I would argue you're right. You have to do cost recovery, but think about this. This isn't something that we can sell to our clients or our colleagues, because we're going to go to them and say, hey, there's an extra fee to help us make our job easier that I need you to pay. So can you pay that for us, please? Thanks.
and
just roll that fee into it.
And from a support standpoint, do you really want to have two solutions: the solution for the people that have money and the solutions for the people that don't?
We would not be we can't do that, because everything's segmented on our campus and nobody's going to have the money to deal with that from a central standpoint.
Exactly. Like, I could roll out this for my classrooms that are general inventory that I control, but I don't want to.
But not every space.
I can't do that for every space, and so that's what I'm looking at. Like, I want to see the direction the industry's going, because I need to start thinking about what the next version of my standard solution, like my kit of parts, since Mark isn't here.
Oh, yeah. I think the pendulum's swinging hard that way, and I have a feeling that once everything hits the market and reality sets in, that pendulum's going to swing back a little bit.
Or even before the pendulum swings back, you have a major provider. You have a Crestron, a Cisco, somebody where that system goes down for 3 days.
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah, and what's the response to that going to be? Now,
that's that pendulum swinging back, right? That axe almost.
The pendulum crashing back, stops dead, and right back at you. So it's tough, and I think we'll see a lot of solutions like that. So I'll be curious to hear. I know of at least 2 right now that I'm going to see. One from Liberty and one from Kramer, and I have a feeling they're all cloud-based per device per year. QSys is the same way. I think Crestron's moving the same way with XIO Cloud and others, and they're all moving to that model, but that's not tenable. And especially in the higher ed market, I don't think that's going to work. In a corporate market where I say I'm going to sell you the following room systems or whatever, and then there's an annual fee, but as part of that you get our maintenance fee or whatever, you could probably roll that in and sneak that in there, but it's tougher in a place where I think we all deal with this, where you have departments who come to you with one-time funds every 8 years.
Yep.
How's that going to work?
We're going to be talking with Liberty here in a little bit, actually, about their solution and figure out what's going on with it. So we're going to report back. So
what do you think the driving force is? Because it seems like everybody's solution looks like that, what you just said. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, why? Why is there no one out there doing anything different at this point?
Well, what would you want different?
I want on-prem monitoring, or open API would be great, so I can come up with my own.
And that's a good point. That's another frustration I have, is everybody is driving towards their ecosystem, which makes sense. It's their hardware. And then you say, okay, that's great, but I have a mixed hardware environment.
Yeah, we have a mixed bag of nuts everywhere.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of Crestron, a bunch of Extron, a bunch of QSys.
We got Kramer and all kinds of crap.
Yeah, how am I going to monitor all that stuff out there on one, the single pane of glass concept? And the best they will give me is, from multiple manufacturers, is, you could leverage API if it's there, which it rarely is, or you can leverage SNMP and things like that. It's like, that's going to get you basic status, but you're not going to get detailed information. So I talked with the guys from AVI SPL several months ago about something similar, and I think I suspect what's going on, a lot of them are rebranding kind of some white label monitoring systems because they're not building these all from scratch, and they all do basically the same thing, and that's great, but for the right client, if I have a law firm where I've got 7 conference rooms, 2 meeting rooms, and a bunch of huddle spaces, and I log in as the IT manager of a law firm, and I see, there's all 16 of my spaces.
Yeah,
that's great.
That makes sense for them.
If I'm, if I'm a small school and I've got 40 rooms, okay, maybe, but I've got 350 of one type and 600 of another, and it's like, how do I drop all that in there with an annual fee of $10,000? So,
yeah, only, if you buy something like that, you're only hitting maybe 20 to 50% of your room base, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see what's out there. Okay, so aside from the cloud stuff, what else are we thinking we're going to see as a major trend?
Well, we'll see AI stuff, and everything's AI. Cameras AI, audio AI, projector mounts AI, screens are AI.
Yeah.
Looking for those projector mounts. I think those will be really useful.
We'll see if there's anything actually interesting about that.
My suspicion is, when we saw it last year too, a lot of companies said they had AI integration. It was basically they were just pulling off the same ChatGPT large language model interface that everyone else had. So
I am interested to look at the camera AI stuff because I think that was getting close last year. But I want cameras that don't track movement and bodies. I want cameras that track voice and who's talking. And some of that, we could always track, this mic gated on, and that's what that means. But it should be getting close to the point that the AI can start saying, that person's about to speak, that they're looking... people are looking in that direction. There should be some intelligence there at this point.
Oh, you're looking for a predictive.
Yeah, almost a predictive.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's the next step, I think, in a lot of our spaces. We all put cameras in our classrooms, and
who's we?
Okay, you put dot cams. That's close enough. The rest of us put cameras in
some
our
of our classrooms,
and they're PTZs, and they never get moved.
Yeah,
and it's not really providing anything better than surveillance. I think the next step is
and they don't get moved because people don't move them because they're teaching.
Exactly.
Right.
That is a technical director type job.
Well, but what about the auto? I mean, you have auto tracking. I have auto tracking. Or do we not think even the basic version of those is?
I think the auto tracking works well in some spaces for some instructors.
It's all right.
If you're having I come from a philosophy bachelor's, and most of my classes were a group of people sitting around in movable chairs in a big circle having a discussion. It'd be great.
So if everyone is fixed, then it's difficult for these systems to pick up who's going to be speaking.
Yeah, and so you just get a wide camera, which doesn't make people not in the room feel like they're part of it.
The one from Hudley, I can't remember what it's called, the Hudley Studio or something like that. It does some of that where it looks at head movement and facial movement. It also does track on audio, so it uses multiple cues to try to switch between multiple cameras. I don't know how well that works in practice.
Well, the new Neat Bar looks like it does a pretty good job, too. I want to go and check that out and test that out.
The system that I've been using, and unfortunately, the biggest downside is it's more expensive, but aside from that, it does work great in even conference room scenarios where people don't move, is where you are automatically recalling presets based on microphone pickup. So when the people at this end of the room are talking, I'm just going to cut to that shot.
Yep.
People at this end of the room are talking, I'm going to cut to that shot. It's kind of a balance between tracking, because it's not true tracking really. It's leveraging telemetry it gets from the microphone, but it does work in that sense. But the other side of the balance is you have more control over what you want that shot to look like. Mm-hmm. So all the rest of them, not all the rest of them, a lot of these pitch as a purely automated or it's 100% AI driven or whatever, but that also means usually there's a large appliance, and I'm not putting a 3RU rack appliance in my systems.
No.
So I'll be curious to see if anybody has something related to that, because that is an interesting idea. Like, where are we on more affordable, more reasonable auto something? Let's just say auto cameras.
I mean, we already have auto framing, so it's not really that much of a jump. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the next step.
I'm interested to see how much Teams and Zoom stuff is out there. You know, it's not really. I'm not really seeing as much as what y'all are seeing. I really don't. Maybe I'm not looking for it because I don't care.
I will be looking for a lot of Teams room stuff out down there because I think that's going to hit me next after it hits
I'm just
Mark.
curious because there's going to be a point, in my opinion, where we're going to go to an InfoComm show one year and go, where's all the team stuff go? Where did it all go? It's gone.
You're right because we see this every 20 years ago. Everyone had codecs. 10 years ago, everyone had, I guess different type of codecs, but different manufacturers on them. So it moves in cycles. 5 years ago, everything was Zoom. Teams is pushing hard, but I think that's just Microsoft's marketing team doing that. I was in a meeting yesterday with a major projector manufacturer who also makes a lot of printers. Do the math. And they were talking about 21 by 9, and it was only coming from Teams rooms and Teams.
Right.
It's like there's no other content, no other interest. There's no other.
Well, there isn't.
Right. There's nothing else driving that. It's 100% coming from Teams. And the interesting thing was, they had a 21 by 9 screen up there, and they had 16 by 9 content on it
because it was just generic presentation.
Yeah.
It's funny because one of my team members took the UNLV tour yesterday, and he took a picture of their 32 by 9 screen at the front of the classroom. It was like, see, ultra wide. And I was like, yeah, 32 by 9,
Correct.
Good. 21 by 9, bad. Like, there's a difference.
Big difference.
Yeah, I'm deploying another 32 by 9 screen this summer. They work great. It's 2 side-by-side screens. And
in the right room, they work fine.
Yeah, these are big auditoriums.
Yeah.
So here's 2, and I like the fixed frame screens because in a lot of these rooms, especially auditoriums, you have space on that front wall above the whiteboard. So it's just empty space.
Yeah.
So why do I need to replace those other screens? I'll leave them there, kill the power to them, and just put this nice new one up. And it dresses up the room nicely, and nothing moves, so that doesn't fail.
So I'm curious as when I'm going to go, oh, wow, where's all this team stuff?
I'm not as optimistic as you are on that.
Yeah.
I think InfoComm will look significantly different in 3 years because everything's going to be, more things are going to be either event or room-based.
I don't know.
When you say room-based, you like room system-based?
Room system-based.
Okay.
I think that's going to become, because of the zero trust, because of all the things we've talked about for the last year.
But then it's all cloud-connected, too. So.
And cloud-connected. So it's going to be, I think the industry is changing in that direction.
I don't think the market can handle it. How many universities in K through 12 that need traditional AV are out there, and all this stuff is going to corporate. And when all these people are not buying this crap, think about how many schools are out there.
Yeah, but when has K through 12 ever put in the right solution anyway?
They're buying traditional AV.
Yeah.
They're buying traditional AV.
So
because that's
even if
what
it's
You're
the
right,
wrong
Justin.
solution,
I think K-12 it's going to take even longer to get to K-12. So
you see what I'm saying?
We're also not a K-12 podcast. So
sure. But I'm just saying the market itself is going to dictate all that on the teams.
Correct. In universities, I think we're going to see the same thing because I know Mark has talked about this a number of times where you have to basically take an existing, let's say, traditional AV system and modify it so it works as a Teams room.
Yeah.
Or if you build it from scratch as a Teams room from the ground up, then there's a lot of compromises to that from a traditional teaching environment scenario because they're all driven to be conference rooms and meeting rooms, not a training room, classroom, that sort of thing.
I just have a feeling like we talked about this during the pandemic about Zoom and everything's going Zoom and now it's Teams and we saw Zoom crash out. I think we're going to see Teams crash out. I just don't see this happening.
Zoom crashed out? What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. Their stocks went way down. Well, adoption went way down, et cetera,
that's more
et cetera.
of a financial thing.
Yeah, I don't care. It doesn't affect what I'm doing.
That's market share.
We still have hundreds of thousands of hours of
and the team stuff isn't affecting what you're doing either. I'm just saying market share is the point here. It's not going to get there.
Well, I agree. I think it's going to be a more difficult push for it, especially in education. It doesn't quite line up, and they're going to
push hard.
They're going to bring the world's largest shoehorn. They're going to show up and just start.
Look, what's that Oregon State? And they, like Mark's been saying it for how long now? And it still hasn't just adopted in all of his classrooms like everybody's fearing.
But he does have some now.
Well, it's all the conference rooms that one building he's dealing with the business case, right?
They're trying it out. So
they're trying it out, but it's not. We'll see.
Yeah. So I guess that would be an interesting to look for on the floor is if anyone's got a Teams room system that would be appropriate or something you could build around for a traditional classroom environment.
Yeah, a good 30-seat solution.
And I'm not going to see it because it's all based upon small conference rooms.
So, I mean, I can scale the same system. Basically, I'm putting in a 30-seat room, and I get bigger projector, bigger speakers, bigger mics, whatever, and that can do 100-seat, 150-seat, 200-seat. But to your point, Justin, all the Teams room things are kind of driven like, well, you could seat 20 people in this meeting room, but that's it. But they're all designed to be like this all-in-one kind of system towards the front of the room. If I want to do I get it, yes, there's stuff in the ceiling and the walls.
Right.
But you know what I mean? But if I want to build a traditional classroom system that is a Teams room, it always feels like it's a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid.
I'll be a believer when I have a Teams auditorium that works. That's when I'll start believing
Microsoft Teams
that
auditorium.
Teams is taking over, that the room kits are taking over all of education.
I guarantee you somebody out there has already done that, and it's probably terrible.
It's probably really stupid.
Well,
but that's my point is,
to be fair,
let's see how takeover this stuff is.
To be fair, you can't do a Zoom auditorium and make it a good experience either. True. Like there is
No.
That's
I'm not saying like the conferencing part. I'm saying the
equipment
UI,
that they
the equipment.
certified.
Like I'm not saying I want to have a conference in an auditorium, but it needs to have the same look and feel and experience as my classrooms. If my classrooms are Teams, my auditorium needs to be Teams too, because all my touch panels match. So that's my point.
Yeah.
When is that happening? Not anytime soon.
Right now. All right. So we'll look for cloud-connected systems. We'll look for AI-driven stuff. We'll look for better auto cameras of some sort.
Sure.
Auto cameras, auto mics, that sort of thing. We'll look for better integration with room systems and see if that's actually going to be a real thing or not. Probably not, but we'll see. Any last thoughts before I push this other button?
I have no thoughts.
No thoughts.
We have yet to get on the show floor. Yeah, we've been here. I've been here since Friday. Been teaching.
That's right. You did a 3-day class. I did a 2-day class.
Yeah, you did a 2-day class. We're all a little tired.
Yeah, that's all right. Especially, I will just say the Vegas layout between the two different halls. Basically, it's in like two separate buildings that are I don't know, 3/4 of a mile apart or something, half a mile apart.
Get your exercise in.
It's a hike though to get back and forth.
Fun.
Especially this year with the construction. It just feels longer.
Alrighty, well, more shows to come this week. Thanks, y'all.
Well, that wraps up another episode of AV SuperFriends Perspectives. If you have a perspective to share, you can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.